In July 2021, a marine biologist with the Shark Trust named Jodie Kershaw was standing on a stone slipway at Newlyn Harbour in Cornwall, holding a measuring tape against the flank of a fish that should not have been there. The animal was 1 metre and 14 centimetres from snout to tail. Its skin had the rough, sandpaper texture common to cartilaginous fish, its underside pale cream, its dorsal surface a warm bronze grey that caught the morning light in a way she later described as almost tropical. It had been brought in by a trawler working the western approaches, hauled up from around 90 metres of water, roughly 40 kilometres southwest of Land's End. Kershaw photographed it from 6 angles, took a small tissue sample, and logged the water temperature at the time of capture, 16.8 degrees Celsius. That figure mattered. It was 2 degrees warmer than the historical average for that location in that month. The fish was a spinner shark, Carcharhinus Brevipinna. Carcharhinus Brevipinna. It had never been formally recorded alive in British waters before. This is not simply a story about one displaced fish on one warm morning. It is a story about a threshold quietly being crossed, about ocean temperatures rewriting the boundaries of species, range in ways that are measurable, documented, and accelerating. The sharks are not migrating in spectacular numbers. They are arriving in ones and twos, following prey and warmth along corridors that until recently did not exist at usable temperatures for them. That is the uncomfortable detail the headlines miss. Not invasion, infiltration. To understand why this matters, it helps to understand where these species came from and how the boundary between British and tropical Atlantic waters was once understood. For most of recorded natural history, the waters surrounding the British Isles were considered a hard northern limit for several warm affinity shark species. The conventional view, supported by survey data going back to systematic Royal Navy oceanographic records from the 1870s, was that the 9-degree isotherm, the invisible line at which average sea surface temperature in winter drops below 9 degrees Celsius, kept species like the spinner shark and the oceanic whitetip, Carcharhinus longimanus, confined to latitudes well south of the Bay of Biscay. This understanding held through the mid-20th century, underpinned by large-scale fisheries data collected during and after the Second World War, when extensive trawling records provided an inadvertent census of what was and was not present in northeastern Atlantic waters. The spinner shark appeared in those records primarily from the coast of West Africa, from Senegal down through Angola, and across the Atlantic in the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean. The oceanic whitetip was similarly catalogued as a deep-water, open-ocean tropical species encountered by commercial vessels in equatorial and subtropical Atlantic zones, but not in the cooler, productive waters of the Celtic Sea or the English Channel. That distribution was considered stable. Climate projections in the 1990s suggested it might shift, but slowly, and the predictions were treated as long-range speculation rather than operational forecasting. The shift arrived sooner than the models suggested. The spinner shark, Carcharhinus Brevipinna, belongs to the family Carcharhinidae. The requiem sharks, a group of approximately 60 species that includes some of the most widespread and ecologically important predators in the global ocean. The spinner gets its common name from a hunting strategy rather than from any anatomical feature. When pursuing schools of small pelagic fish, particularly sardines, anchovies, and juvenile mackerel, It accelerates vertically through the center of a bait ball and rotates on its longitudinal axis, spinning as it breaches the surface. This behavior is not decorative. The rotation allows the shark to strike multiple fish in a single pass, and the momentum carries it clear of the water, sometimes to heights of 1.5 meters above the surface. It is a feeding mechanism calibrated for speed and density. The species reaches an average adult length of around 2 meters, though females can reach 2.5 meters. Maximum recorded weight is approximately 90 kilograms. Its preferred water temperature range is between 20 and 28 degrees Celsius in tropical and subtropical environments. But field studies conducted off the Canary Islands by researchers at the Universidad de Las Palmas de Gran Canaria between 2012 and 2018 documented consistent activity in waters as cool as 15.4 degrees Celsius, suggesting the thermal floor of the species is lower than previously assumed. This is critical. A 15-degree tolerance means that summer surface temperatures, now routinely recorded in the southwestern approaches to the English Channel, fall within the species' operational range for between 4 and 6 weeks per year, a window that did not exist with the same regularity before approximately 2005. The prey is the other driver. Populations of Atlantic mackerel, Scomber scombrus, have shifted their core range northward by an average of 50 to 70 kilometers per decade since the 1980s, according to data published by the Centre for Environment, Fisheries and Aquaculture Science in 2020. Where the mackerel go, the predators adapted to hunting them follow. The spinner shark does not need a permanent thermal corridor. It needs the corridor to exist for long enough to be worth using. Stories like this are happening right now, and almost no one is covering them in detail. If you want to keep finding the quiet ones that the news cycle misses, subscribe to this channel. A new film every week. Dr. Andrew Griffiths, a senior lecturer in marine conservation genetics at the University of Exeter's Penryn campus, has been tracking elasma branch presence in southwest British waters since 2014, using environmental DNA analysis, a technique that detects traces of genetic material shed by animals into the water column. In a 2022 paper published in the journal Frontiers in Marine Science, Griffiths and his co-authors reported the presence of Carcharhinus Brevipinna eDNA in 17 water samples collected between the Isles of Scilly and the Bristol Channel, approaches between June and September of 2021. We are not looking at established residency, Griffiths noted in the paper's discussion section. We are looking at repeated transient presence in warming conditions, which is a different and arguably more consequential phenomenon. The Shark Trust, working alongside the Marine Conservation Society, has since established a dedicated sightings protocol for warm water Carcharhinid species in British waters, logging reports from fishers, divers, and commercial survey vessels. Between 2019 and 2023, that log recorded 47 credible sightings, or capture events attributable to subtropical or tropical shark species in waters north of the 49th parallel. The pattern is not confined to Cornwall. Off the west coast of Ireland, in waters between Galway Bay and the continental shelf edge, trawler operators have reported encounters consistent with spinner and silky shark, Carcharhinus falciformis, on at least 11 separate occasions since 2018, According to records held by the Irish Basking Shark Group, in the North Sea, the picture is different but related. Bull sharks, Carcharhinus lucus, a species with a documented tolerance for lower salinity and cooler temperatures than most of its genus, have been noted in North Sea fisheries bycatch records twice since 2017, once near the Doggerbank and once in waters off the Dutch coast near the Zeeland province. Neither animal was large, which suggests juvenile dispersal rather than adult range extension. But juvenile dispersal is precisely how a range extension begins. In the Canary Islands, meanwhile, spinner shark populations that have historically served as the closest established Atlantic population to Britain show signs of northward seasonal extension. Tagging data from a joint program between the Spanish Instituto Español de Oceanografía and the Portuguese IPMA agency, published in 2023, tracked 3 tagged spinners from their winter grounds near the Cape Verde Islands to summer feeding positions as far north as the latitude of northern Portugal, a journey of approximately 2,800 kilometers, completed in under 8 weeks. And here the story becomes more complicated, because not everyone agrees on what this means, or what, if anything, should be done about it. Some ecologists argue that the arrival of apex and mesopredator sharks in northeastern Atlantic ecosystems represents not a threat, but a potential correction. British coastal waters, particularly the shallow shelf seas of the Celtic Sea and the southern North Sea, have been functionally depredated of large sharks for decades, in some cases centuries. The common skate, Dipterus batis, once abundant throughout British inshore waters, is now critically endangered. The taupe, Carcharhinus galeus, has declined by an estimated 71% in northeast Atlantic populations since 1970, according to IUCN assessments. A system that once had large chondrichthyan predators structuring fish populations no longer has them. The arrival of new species does not simply add pressure. It may, in some configurations, restore function. But the counter-argument carries weight. The species now appearing are not ecological substitutes for the ones that were lost. They are warm water predators entering a cool water system that has restructured itself in their absence over many generations. The prey species available, the prey behaviors, the competitive landscape, the seasonal timing of productivity pulses, none of it matches the tropical and subtropical systems these sharks evolved within. There is also the question of human interaction. The spinner shark is not considered highly dangerous to people, but it is a fast, active predator of around 2 meters that has been involved in unprovoked incidents in Florida and South African waters. Its increasing presence in waters used by surfers in Cornwall and southwest Wales is a development that carries implications no one is yet formally managing. The water keeps warming. In the western approaches, summer sea surface temperatures in 2023 reached 21.4 degrees Celsius at certain stations, a figure that would have been considered exceptional as recently as 2000. The sharks do not consult range maps. They follow gradients of temperature and prey availability with the same unreflective precision they have used for 45 million years, since something close to the modern Carcharhinus lineage first appears in the Eocene fossil record. They are not coming to stay, not yet, not most of them. But the window opens a little wider each summer, and the trawlers keep bringing things to the surface that the old textbook said belonged somewhere else. Jody Kershaw's spinner shark was released alive at Newlyn. still strong enough to right itself immediately and move away from the hull. She stood at the end of the slipway for a while after it had gone, watching the place in the grey-green water where it had been. The tissue sample went to Exeter. The data went into a spreadsheet that is growing year by year. And somewhere out in the western approaches, in water that is a little warmer than it was last summer, something is still moving northward, following the fish, following the warmth, not knowing that it has crossed a line that humans once considered fixed. Share your thoughts below.